Thank you so much once again for joining us on a Tuesday night. Thank God it's Tuesday. I'm Ken Marangolo for First Amendment Sports, welcoming you to the greatest night of the week on the official Redskins podcast of Hogs Haven and Anchor Show First Amendment Sports. Joined in the basement virtually by my two main men. Let's start on the top left, work our way around. Tim Strachan, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. It was a great interview we just did with Coach G from Paula Six on our high school show, and looking forward to talking a little Redskins tonight, man. I missed you guys.
We missed you too, T. You're getting emotional at the top of a show. It's a little bit of a reversal. But joined for the first time tonight, Kevin Ricka. How you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing great. Looking forward to Tuesday as usual. Got myself set up here in the attic, but and I thought I could get the background hooked up. I couldn't get it done. I apologize for the boring background behind this big old dome of redness.
We're going to get that fixed. I didn't know you went
attic style. I didn't know you went attic style. Is that allowed? That's the total opposite of the basement.
Upper basement.
Yeah, it's a basement for upstairs.
It's a basement at heart. An attic, in many respects, is basement-esque.
This is true. It's better what I got. I'm on the main floor.
Usually hotter, not quite as cool as a basement. You know, basement tends to be a little bit cooler. Kevin, it's good to see you after having made your way all the way back from San Francisco. We appreciate your.
Listen, I'm not sure what's scarier, T's basement or your San Francisco treats.
First of all, what's that?
Please indulge the audience, Ken, with the San Francisco.
All I'm going to say is I had a dream.
No, we don't have to do that.
Kevin played for the San Francisco 49ers. He was a tackle, not the starting left tackle. That was Trent Williams. But Kevin was like bitching and moaning because he couldn't handle his duties as the third tackle. He was getting eaten up by linebackers in practice. And the Wallflowers were playing a concert, and we were eating nachos. Come on. And Carl Smoka, my good friend from Loyola, who lives in San Francisco, was kind enough to join us. I'm a little disappointed that you went out the night before a game. I'm a little disappointed that you were into a crowded bar in the time of COVID. But mostly, I just wish you would man up and do your duty on the outside of the left tackle and just take care of business.
Yeah, I guess I should have done that. I guess I apologize.
Thank you. Was that so hard?
Just listening to the background with one headlight, I'm not sure, what the deal was with that. I think we need to move forward out of this little section we've gotten into.
We're going to move forward. We always move forward.
Kevin wants to take a duty on your dream.
Don't duty on my dreams. We're going to talk about the dreams of Redskins fans tonight. The schedule release came out between now and the last time we talked, and everyone takes a crack at the schedule. We'll be doing it for the next couple weeks, but this is our Washington Redskins schedule show, and we appreciate all you guys hanging out with us on the board tonight from Hogs Haven. We will go a little bit through here and talk about what we're looking forward to in a season that we, for the purpose of this conversation, believe is absolutely happening. Absolutely happening. Everything happens on time according to schedule. Washington Redskins break camp with a roster ready to go in week one. Week one at home against, Kevin?
Philadelphia comes to town. Can't think of a nicer bunch of humans come on down here and kick off the season with.
So right now the odds in Vegas and Atlantic City, anywhere you bet, I know Greg Martin online, you've probably already bet on this. You can bet on whether or not there will be fans in attendance for this game. And I think Kevin and you and I talked about it before, there'd be something special about denying all those Eagles fans entrance into FedEx for once.
Yeah, they're going to have to pay a toll. Maybe we just won't tell them until the last second. We'll just keep them outside the stadium. That'd be fantastic.
Or maybe you won't be able to travel from city to city. Maybe at that point, you can go locally to games, but you can't be bringing them Pennsylvania tags down I-95. Either way, in both of those scenarios, you're talking about a game against the Eagles at FedEx, which for the first time since as long as I can remember will have a whole lot less green in it. That'll be refreshing. Even if there's nobody there, it'll be refreshing to not have Eagles fans there. Um, we're also taking on probably one of the better teams in our division. People are going to say it's Dallas. Very well. If Carson Wentz is healthy, Philadelphia Eagles are as good as they need to be to win the NFC East. So it's a big test right away, and it puts a big-time quarterback in the sights of our number one draft pick right out of the gate. So that, to me, that's compelling.
Right.
Yeah,
it's like
a huge
boom.
deal. Go ahead, T.
It's a boom or bust. I think it's so exciting because it is the Eagles. It's a division game, but you love it until you hate it because a lot of the times those don't work out well for us. Thank God it's not prime time, but with all our Eagles fans that are within our families and that live around us, it's an emotional first game for sure, whether there's fans or not.
Well, speaking about emotion, you look at the team we're playing. They beat us in the opener last year, 32-27. We hung in there for the better part. Vernon Davis pulled something out of his 35-year-old magic hat.
Wow.
And went 60. We're feeling pretty good about things. We got up on those guys, and we weren't ready. We weren't ready to hang on just then. But this year, when they come in, whether there's fans, whether there's green or burgundy and gold or whatever empty, there's a big deal not having Malcolm Jenkins back in that secondary. I know they got really fast at the wide receiver position, and they took the TCU guy, Jalen Reagor. I hope they learned their TCU wide receiver lesson as well. But, not having Malcolm Jenkins, and it feels good to know that Darren Sproles won't be in on third downs or returning kicks because he retired. So I'm pretty happy about that situation. You can't control Carson Wentz's health or anyone else's at this point in time, apparently. But, I like the fact that the leader of that team is not going to be in that secondary that day.
And if the Redskins are lucky enough to get out to a lead the way they were last year, you get the sense that a Ron Rivera, Jack Del Rio-led defense has a much better chance of hanging on to things than what we saw last year, which ultimately was a halfway decent defense. They just spent so much time on the field. There's what can you do?
Well, Ken, that's exactly what happened, and then especially in division games. In our 6 division games last year, we gave up an average of 35.3 points per game. I know that wasn't specifically our defense, but our defense had a heavy hand in that, and our offense is going to have to do a better job maintaining possession of the ball and keeping those guys off the field so they can be effective when they are on. Because 35.3 points a game in 6 NFC East games is not getting it done, obviously. That's brutal.
My only fear is that if this season starts on time when it's supposed to, it's just going to be hard for the Redskins having a new regime to come out the gate and be as ready as a team that's coming off a Super Bowl win just a couple of years ago. So I think that's a big knock against the Redskins going into it, which is why I love the fact that they're at the end of the schedule again, because I think they'll be ready for them more so then than they will be for game one.
We might be ready more for the Eagles, but hopefully that week 1 game every year in the NFL, somebody's going to trip up somebody that you don't see coming, and that's a big chance for the Washington Redskins because no one sees us coming, and why would they?
That. No, you're right. There is the complete opposite effect where you could surprise somebody, but the Eagles they're right now as an organization just a little further along than the Redskins, who are starting out with a new regime. It's not a knock against Rivera or any of those guys. They're going to be professionals and prepare themselves the way they always do. I'm just saying your first game out of the bat off of quarantine and a shortened preseason and all that, I'm there in their corner. It's just going to be tough.
Well, hey, T, hang on to that notion. Before we get into this next game, there are 5 new head coaches, 5 new regimes in the NFL this season. Obviously, Ron Rivera in this era is one of them. We played the other 4, a total of 6 times. We play them all. And that means we have 6 games against new regimes. And speaking of Philadelphia new regimes, they have 8 of their 16 games against new regimes, considering all 3 NFC East head coaches have been replaced. That's a big deal for them. And then you look over at Cleveland with Stefanski and Matt Rule back down in Carolina. You know, that's a big deal. If we're going to talk about new regimes early in the season, we're going to have plenty of opportunity.
Well, the Redskins hit the road after week 1, hopefully a win against the Philadelphia Eagles. But they hit the road in week 2. They'll go out to Arizona. That's basically our version of a primetime game this year, is a 4 p.m. game. That's what you're going to get this year for the Washington Redskins. Ain't no Monday night, ain't no Thursday night. You get a Thanksgiving at 4, and you get a West Coast game at 4. On the road at Arizona, on the road in Cleveland. We talk about kind of two teams. I don't know if you'd say they're going in different directions. Kingsbury is still getting things started in Arizona. I'm looking forward to watching Murray and Hopkins. And then you guys know how I feel about Baker. But Kevin, I mean, as far as the Kingsbury experiment, I think it's the secret of the NFL right now that it's working. And Kyler Murray is impressive. If you kind of start to go back and look at what he did in year 1, I'm impressed.
I was impressed watching him, looking at his digs during that draft. You know, he's say hello to my little friend Kyler Murray in year 2. We just got our boy DeAndre Hopkins on board. Guy catches everything. You know, they're going to put up stats, they're going to put up numbers, but I just don't care about Cliff Kingsbury going, 8-8 for the next 5 years, dressing like a pimp. Have at it, Cliff. I just don't see that they have enough on defense. They got rid of your boy David Johnson. Yep. And then over with your boy Baker, that's another. Is it the Millennial Falcons or the Cleveland Browns? I mean, who knows what's going to happen with that group of people? Who knows?
Well, so how I feel about Baker. I think that he could be one of those players that kind of bounces around for stat-wise for over 10 years. Good enough to stay in the league, but only has a good year every other year. I think he's due for a good year. I thought he was due for a good year last year, but it wasn't terrible. It was like 20. He basically had the same amount of interceptions as touchdowns. It was like 22 and 21, 3,700 yards. Just not good enough. I mean, he wasn't good enough. He gave the ball up at bad times, and they didn't win. They didn't win enough, and that's got to be on him. So I think he can't do much worse. It's another new regime in Cleveland, so we'll see how that impacts the guy. Who was it who said that Baker Mayfield was going to be bigger than LeBron by the time it was all over? It was one of a big name, a draft name. Maybe someone on the board will get that for me and help me out. It was maybe a Skip Bayless or a Stephen A. type guy. I don't know which one it was.
Skip Bayless, it doesn't count. So
that's true. That's fair. That's totally fair.
Neither one of those two, though. Neither one of the Arizona or Cleveland scares me too much.
As they shouldn't.
But people are so out of the gate. Redskins get a difficult NFC East matchup. Then they go on the road twice, and they play two teams that, on paper, they're not blowouts. Cleveland should beat the crap out of the Redskins. I don't see that it happens that way. I don't know why they should,
I don't see why. 6-10, coming off a whole bunch of drama with a whole new head coach and a whole
understood.
New whatever.
I just look at a team that's
beating the crap out of anybody. They haven't yet.
On paper, though, they're talent-wise, they're full of first-round picks. I mean, they're farther along in their rebuild than the Washington Redskins. They've been drafted in the top 5, top 10 for like 10 straight years. They have a lot of horses. They haven't done a whole lot with it, and they took a step backward with what's his face last year. God, I can't think of his name off the top of my head. But the new regime,
Freddie Kitchens.
Yeah, Kitchens. That's right. He's out. The new regime will inherit those horses. We'll see what they can do. They are talented. It's just a matter of whether they can put it together.
On paper.
I know. Well, Kevin, that's what we're talking about on paper right now. I mean, the Washington Redskins on paper have some way to go.
They had a chance to prove that last year, Ken, and they shit the bed. I mean, they
shit the bed without a doubt.
They had all these expectations. They had Baker in every commercial. Every third NFL commercial is Baker Mayfield. The dude can't run away from a security guard.
They were good commercials.
Every fifth commercial. He's never won a damn thing.
Come on, man.
He's not playing it. Saying they should beat the crap out of anybody.
He's also not playing games drunk off his ass. So.
And the Redskins drafted ahead of the Browns for a reason. I mean, let's just be honest.
Look, I'm not even worried about the personnel of these two teams at all. What I'm worried about most is 2 road games back to back. and especially one being on the West Coast. Those are the hardest for. I mean, that's odds. Just look at the odds makers. That they always factor that in. I think they split one of those two just for that alone, not the personnel.
Redskins come back after Arizona and Cleveland. They're at home versus the Baltimore Ravens. That's a 1 p.m. game on CBS. They're at home the following week, hosting our good friend Sean McVay. The Ravens Redskins game, I get excited for. I love that game. I know that the Ravens have been on top of the league in a way the Redskins haven't in a long time, and they've had our number as a result. I think Baltimore and Washington should play every single year. I think the NFL gets that wrong. They apparently aren't getting my emails, T, on that one. But it's a fun game. It's early in the season. The season's not going to be decided that early, thankfully, as it has been in this game in the past, 5, 6, 7 years. That game has mattered, but all the way back to 2012 when Kirk Cousins came in for RG3. So probably a less consequential matchup, but Baltimore and Washington's just fun, and that's what we need in sports right now, and that's what we're going to get early on in the NFL season if we're lucky enough for it, Kevin.
Yeah, well, be careful for how much fun you want to have against Lamar Jackson, Harbaugh, and the 14-2 ridiculous Ravens squad that got upended in the playoffs, but that's as good of a regular season as we've seen in recent years. And Lamar Jackson is all of it. We know that. I do not look forward to seeing Lamar Jackson in Ravens purple and orange and whatever the hell else colors happen in Baltimore. But I respect the crap out of him, and it'll be a great test for our defense to see what's up because their defensive line. They gave up 200 rushing yards in the playoffs. They had the least amount of sacks in the NFL last year. So there's things that we look at that we could. We're not there yet, but it doesn't need to be the 14-2 versus the 3-13 squad. It could be more like the 13-3 versus a 500 squad. And at home in the NFL these days, we'll see. But I do not see us I see us as double-digit underdogs heading into that one.
T, do you get up for Baltimore, Washington, or is that just over here in the basement?
That's an uphill battle. Now, I'm with you on the excitement. I love the fact that they play the Ravens, and I do agree. I'd love to see it every single year. There's no doubt about it, just because of the proximity and the fans and the what it brings out of us as fans. But they're so much further along right now. Just look at their organization. Hats off to Steve Bisciotti for doing
a great owner.
Incredible job. He's a great owner, great guy, Maryland guy. So, he does it the right way, and it's showing on the field right now. And I think the Redskins have a ways to go before they can compete with that. But it's the NFL any given Sunday, and that's why we watch it as fans.
Well, we'll definitely be watching the following week when the Rams are playing inside FedEx. It's funny because the Rams and the Lions and some of these Buccaneers, bottom-dwelling teams over the last 15, 16, 17 years. Not of the last few. Obviously, the Rams are better than that now. But on an annual basis, we just got so used to that matchup in that terrible, terrible dome they played in. I hated it. I felt like there was always at least half the light bulbs were just burned out or something. Like people weren't replacing them. It was kind of a miserable look. Right?
It reminded you that Sunday was half over and Monday and school was so close. That dark, dark dome just made you feel like the creepy crawlies of Sunday freakout later in the afternoon when the week's about to start and football's about to end. Place sucked.
And it wasn't good football. It just wasn't. I mean, it was bad versus bad, and that's the way that the NFL has it. You play that other bad. You play your same team in the other divisions, and we were bad, so we played bad. And when the Rams and Lions games came back-to-back weeks, I felt like I was literally the only one watching those games. But I know I wasn't. Sean McVay brings his guys in. They're missing Todd Gurley. Obviously, he's in Atlanta now. Jared Goff, another guy who we all believe is super talented. He didn't have the worst season, but he needs a bounce-back season for the Rams to get back to where they were a couple years ago. And I don't know why you would bet against that, T. I mean, he's pretty damn good.
No, they had somewhat of a slump last year, but I think McVay's got them on a right trajectory. But hey, again, cross country trip, I think plays a big factor. This is, that's one thing that's in favor of the Redskins here.
And Sean McVay has made it because Frank Caliendo is starting to work some Sean McVay impressions into his act. So that's huge. He's nowhere near as handsome, though, Kevin.
I knew you had to hate that because Caliendo, you don't find Caliendo anywhere near as attractive as you find McVay. And I know that. And McVay, we got to worry about how attractive he finds Jared Goff. Jared Goff's face has been half sketched onto a milk carton. They're going to wait and see what happens this fall before they finish it. But 9-7 last year, not making the playoffs. I don't know what's up with all that. I thought they were about to light it up.
I'll limit my fantasy references, but he was a huge letdown for us fantasy owners last year. Jared Goff comes in, with the Sean McVay offense, you expect yards and touchdowns and lots of it and big plays. And they didn't have any of it. And so every fantasy owner out there understands very well what happened to the Rams last year. It was no excitement and ultimately, like you said, a letdown.
Hey, Ken.
Yeah.
That'll be your last transition from Sean McVay not being handsome enough due to Frank Caliendo right into fantasy football. You're giving yourself up, man. You're telling your hand. That's your poker face is terrible.
I've never claimed to have a good poker face. I do love me some Sean McVay. I wish he was our coach. I really do, but that's not we've talked about that a million times.
Yeah, but you wish he was our coach for other reasons. You just want to see him more, which is weird.
He's the smartest guy in the room, almost in any room he stands in, and I think players love him. And I could go on and on, but I won't. Either way, 2 very hard home games for the Washington Redskins with the Rams and the Ravens. That could be a tough. You'd be welcome home from a 2-game road stretch to that is difficult. Thankfully, we go on the road again, escaping FedEx in the mid-October for New York. We got 2 NFC East games in a row with the Giants and Cowboys. We're in New York at home versus Dallas. First things first, we head up to the Meadowlands for our first game against the Giants and their new regime. Now, they didn't get Ron Rivera. I still don't know if Gettleman was ever, actually ever really serious about that. But we got our guy. They got their guy. They got a second-year quarterback. They got a third Saquon going into his third year, stud running back. And now they're thinking they have put something together on the outside at wide receiver. That could be a fun game, old school NFC East. If our defense is anything like we think, that they can be, now you're talking about potentially watching an old school, fist fight on that side of the game. Now it remains to be seen what our offense can do against their defense. But I guess I'm mostly excited about our defense versus their offense. T?
No, I agree with you. I think that's going to be a point in the season where this defense is really going to, start taking off. With an offense like that, you can really key in on a guy like Saquon, try to take him away, force a guy like Jones to beat you in his second year. I think everything's lining up for the Redskins in this one. And I don't know if that's just my fan speak talking or if I just hate the Giants that much. But I have no respect for them, and I think this is going to be one that's in Redskins' favor.
Yeah, those guys were 4-12 last year. If it's not for an overtime win against us, we flipped spots in the draft. They beat us 24-3 early in the season, 41-35 overtime game late in the season. All of it was garbage.
Yep.
None of it was great football. There's some great football players out there, and there'll be some better ones out there this year. We'll see what Joe Judge has got. I think interesting and weird hire, but they got Andrew Thomas now going up against Chase Young for 5 years right in front of our faces, and I don't think he's athletic enough to deal with that guy one-on-one, and I don't think many offensive tackles are. I look forward to that for the next 5 years, but like T, they're right there with us, man. This is this isn't. What was that? Real?
We're working on some sound effects there. T's been
boy.
practicing with Luke.
I think I almost had to excuse myself from the Skype.
I was gonna say, if there was a time during the season when Redskins fans got to see the magic of Montez Sweat on one side and Chase Young on the other side, I think it's the game against the Giants, more so than maybe any other game that we have until that point. Because Kevin, what you said, we're two teams that are still kind of mid rebuild, big time mid rebuild. The Giants have talent, we have talent. Neither of us have put it together meaningfully at this point. Both of us have new coaches, and it'd be interesting to see the way in which different players buy into each of these coaches and what's going on there. For the Washington Redskins, we know we have to be good at. We have to be good at defensive line play, and I don't know if it's going to be that good right out of the gate. And we have to do it against, Baker and Jared and Carson and Lamar. For us, getting a chance to take a bite out of the Giants' ass at this point of the season, to me, could be the game of the first, before that bye.
Yeah, we're gonna need it. We're gonna need a. I guess. How did you say? Take a bite out of that New York apple ass. Is that what you meant?
That's right. That's
sure.
Benita Applebaum.
Yeah, you gotta put me on. So, but we can't take too big of a bite because we got to digest all that before we take on the Cowboys at home for the first time in the Ron Rivera era. And that's a big deal.
Week 7, October 25th. Come back to FedEx for the game before the bye week. Everything on the line between Washington and Dallas for the first time under Ron Rivera. Listen, the Dallas Cowboys are going to enter the season as a Super Bowl contender because that's what people do every single August and September is they talk up Dallas. I hate it. It's been happening way too long. It sucks. I hate it. But that said, their schedule is not that hard. They're going to roll into FedEx with some wins, and we're going to have to shock the world, I think, to beat them. But I also don't see it as a blowout because I don't see Ron Rivera allowing that game to be a blowout. I think that's the game where you see the Ron Rivera effect, and I think that would be the best news for Redskins fans who had to play these guys twice a year for however many years Ron Rivera stays on the sideline.
Yeah, Ken, they had the number one offense in the NFL last year. They put up a ton of yards, a ton of points. They did it on the ground. They did it through the air. They were pretty nasty. They were pretty balanced. So they fired Garrett after all that. Pretty interesting to see what Mike McCarthy's going to do to take over. But I'll pose this question to you two and the board because it's going to be brought up a million times heading into next year and all throughout the course of next year. As a Redskin fan right now, would you rather have Amari Cooper and around $15 million of salary cap space moving forward for the next few years, 4 years, or would you rather sit on what we got right now, take the season to figure it out, see what we got to do receiver-wise, not have the ultimate speed weapon out there that's proven, save a couple bucks and have $35 million headed into an off season? That's going to be what we debate all throughout the season next year, whether we like it or not, depending on what Cooper does, because we try to give that man as much money as we could.
And he didn't take it. What do you got, D?
I'll take B. I'll take B.
B.
Option B. I like B.
I like B too. We talked about this last week, and I talked about it on Hogs Haven this week, and that's the find out year. Year one of a true rebuild, which we've not really had under Dan Snyder. You actually allow your coaches to coach. You actually allow your players to play. The people that you picked. You picked all these guys. Don't try to fill them. Don't try to fill their holes without even giving them a chance to play. Don't demote a guy you've never allowed to develop or get onto the field so you can sign a mid-tier, veteran to get you through the season. That's not what the Washington Redskins have done, and that's not what Thomas Davis is all about, just to preempt that comment from folks. The Washington Redskins are going to find out about a lot of guys. I'd love to find out about Kelvin Harmon. I'd love to find out about what they can do with this 21 personnel we talk so much about, Kevin, and I'd love to find out, who can take the next step because they're going to get the chance. Can Steven Sims take the next step? Can Trey Quinn be healthy? Can Cody Lattimore, be a guy who can be a long-time pro? Can the kid from Liberty, Mr. Gandy, can he show up and be a pro player and a red zone target? So these are all guys who are going to get chances. And by the time we get to Week 7 against the Dallas Cowboys, all those players will have gotten reps, assuming that they stayed healthy throughout training camp. And that, Kevin, to your point, and this is really why I'm looking for this to be the Ron Rivera week, where everything starts to come together for our coach. and we start to see a little bit of a positive return, because the season could start going sideways for the win loss column at this point, or at some point soon thereafter, and he's going to have to get wins, statement wins in a lopsided win loss record, that he's going to have to be, to go in that locker room and face the team, and know that he's got those in his pocket. And to me, this is that game. Now, the Redskins fan, we're predicting we beat the Dallas Cowboys in Week 7 at home. Obviously, that's not going to go too far. But to me, if this is a classic Redskins Cowboys, if the Redskins are 2-14 or 4-12, this being one of those wins, when the Cowboys are flipped over in that win loss column, this is a classic situation where we can get a win like that and then look back on it as a reason why we made progress in 2020.
And they have so many holes they got to fill, Ken. They're coming off an 8-8 season. Like I said, they lit it up offensively, but they weren't great scoring in the red zone. They didn't finish drives as well as they needed to with that lack of defense. And now off that defense, they lose their best cornerback. Byron Jones is gone. He was the number one corner on the market. You lose Robert Quinn. He led the team in sacks. You're looking down at their third down man, Randall Cobb. Everyone on earth thought he was going to stick around to play for his ex-coach, Mike McCarthy. He decides to leave town. Then Travis Frederick, one of the best centers in the game, up and decides to retire out of nowhere. So these guys got a lot of issues, and you know how Dallas likes to fill them every which way they can. They'll get a little dirty with it. You see Alden Smith and Randy Gregory applying for reinstatement. Be very interesting to see how those two go down the path and where that path leads them, and how they fill all these holes with a new head coach. Man, I don't give a shit about Dallas.
What do you got, T?
Yeah, oddly enough, I feel for some reason, because I think the paper probably says different, but I feel a momentum shift here in the season for the Redskins, and it being two NFC East foes, where they start to turn things around and make it a little bit interesting going into that bye week. I think we're going to be feeling good about ourselves, not just under 500 still, but I think we're going to start feeling a little bit better about things at that point in the season, oddly enough.
Now, I know we're not doing record win-loss predictions at this point in time. I think it's safe to say. What's that? Well,
in my head,
I am too. I do my Road to 10-6 article every year, and it will come out again very soon on Hogs Haven this year as well. And that's just the way it has to be. There's got to be a Road to 10-6, and maybe we miss the on-ramp here and there, a year here and a lot lately. But T is working on getting the ways, directions, and we're going to get to that road. I'm hoping sooner rather than later. Week 8 bye hits. We always agree a mid-season bye is the best bye. It's ahead of time. I mean, obviously, if you could pick your bye in retrospect, you'd probably do a lot better job. But having a mid-season bye works just great. We come out of the bye in Week 9. We're at home against the New York Giants for a third NFC East game in a row. We just talked about this crappy team from New York. They got to come down I-95 and play us. We're well rested. Obviously, we beat that ass. And then we go on the road to Detroit. Now, I'll pose the Detroit Lions question. Traditionally, I love playing Detroit as a Washington Redskins fan for our whole existence, the three of us. Until 10 years ago, we never feared Detroit. Our record against the Lions, even in the Barry Sanders years, were amazing. We destroyed them in the playoffs. We never lost to the Detroit Lions. You woke up in the morning of a game where the Redskins played the Lions, and you just were like, man, this is going to be a good day. I think that could be the case again, T, but we have to give the Lions a little bit of respect. I think Matt Stafford is a classy quarterback, and he's capable of throwing for 400 yards on you at any given time.
Yeah, no, I agree. Look, it's the NFL. It's any given Sunday, but this is always a weird game for me, especially at Detroit. I know it's a new stadium and all, and actually I've been there. Maryland played the bowl game there recently, but it's just got that weird feel. Like nothing about it makes it very exciting. It's the Lions, you know.
But the tradition, the pomp, the circumstance, Detroit, the paper Lions. I mean, they are a. I don't know. I mean, they're a historic landmark.
Flowing, you know, it's nothing to look forward to. It's the Lions.
I know. I get you. I understand what you're saying, and you're not wrong. It hasn't been, like I said, for the last 10 years, it hasn't been great football. We've taken our lumps. We finally started losing to the Detroit Lions, whereas we never did before. So you can't wake up and have that good feeling. It's been bad versus bad. That's been one of the bad versus bad, matchups. It's if they could schedule this game on, basic cable, they would have done that a number of times in the last 10 years. Thankfully, they can't. But the Washington Redskins, Detroit Lions, it's a coin flip because it just is. Because, T, to your point, it's the Lions, right, Kev?
Yeah, this Lions team stinks, man. I mean, they stink. Their head coach looks like Ken. It looks like Ken if you quarantined for 15 years is what this guy looks like. He's got one more year left in Detroit. He's got one more crack at it. Ken, that means if you have to eat a high-fat diet, never shave that beard, and just wear the same Belichick sweatshirt every day while you scratch your like mid part of your ribs.
I've been training for that my whole life. I'm ready.
Yeah,
I'm ready to do it.
Dude, they were 3-12-1. They stink. I don't see any change of culture. You know, they got Akuda and DeAndre Swift. Those are two superstar athletic talents. You just hope that those guys can fight through their rookie contract to figure it out in 4 or 5 years.
By the way, Eric Anderson, Judgment Night. I mean, we're talking about the same movie, right? The Dennis Leary, Jeremy Piven movie. Emilio Estevez riding the Winnebago in town. And everything goes to hell. I think we're talking about the same movie. Two things: great movie, underrated movie, and amazing soundtrack. I'll put that out there. Eric Anderson made a Judgment Night reference on the board, and I just love it. The Redskins dispatch the Detroit Lions, and then come back home, take on the Cincinnati Bengals. This is the one they were questioning whether to put on TV this year. There was a big meeting in league headquarters. Were like, should we put the Redskins-Bengals game on TV? Thankfully, they decided they were going to televise this game, so we get a chance to watch it. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know who's going to win. I don't know who's going to lose. I know that we're going to have a really good chance. It'd probably be the most bet-on game that week because no one knows who knows anything about the Redskins-Bengals game. Probably the funnest game to bet on.
I tell you what, we should have our boy Jeff Clay on that week for sure for a pregame and maybe even a postgame appearance.
Last time we played, it was all we could talk about was the damn tie in London. That was the last time, I believe. The worst missed field goal in recent history. I think that was Dustin Hopkins. Yeah, we gotta. I just don't want to see any highlights about that game all week long leading up to it. Just talk about the two Ohio State guys. Let Urban Meyer make his pick on who's going to win. And if we don't beat the Cincinnati Bengals, then, oh, boy, all hell is going to break loose.
It was Halloween party night the night before that game. Whether it was a Halloween or not, I can't remember. But that was the night everyone had Halloween parties. Everyone went out for Halloween that night. Then you had to wake up and to do a proper tailgate. You know, you're talking about 4 or 5 hours before a game to tailgate properly, of which we're committed to. For a 9 a.m. kickoff, that meant the pancakes were coming off the griddle at about 4:45, 5 a.m. And there wasn't a whole lot of sleep before that happened. And I got to tell you, I was praying for that game to end about an hour before it actually did. It was one of the longest days of my life. I'll never forgive Cincinnati. I'll never forgive the kicker whose name I shall not mention, and I will never forgive the entire country of England for allowing that just crazy terribleness to be upon me in my life on that day. We need to exercise that demon for Ken Marang. That's the Ken Marangolo game, guys. Now listen, I'm not trying to make this. I just want one game. One game. I want this game to be over in the first quarter. That's what I want. I want to be up by like 30 points by the time we go to halftime. No doubter, running clock, get us out of there, get us home. We need to average our average time of game with the Bengals down about, 80 minutes on that day is my hope.
Today.
All right. We're on the road. Short week. Thanksgiving. Sitting at the table eating some turkey with our family, watching the Redskins play the Cowboys. This is a tradition I can get really, really comfortable with.
Love it.
I'm happy to see it happening more often. If anyone knows that there's a formula that makes this happen the way it's been happening, tell me. But I think this is a good move by the NFL. I think it's a hat tip to the rivalry, and it's been a fun day for Redskins fans, except on the days when it hasn't been. But it's been a memorable day, and I know Kevin, going back all the way for you, Washington Redskins and Dallas Cowboys, when we've had a chance to see them on Thanksgiving, that's family time at its best.
Ken, I agree with everything you just said, except for the memorable part. When you have a Thanksgiving Day game at 4:30 involving our boys and those guys, yeah, whatever happens after halftime isn't exactly in the memory bank for the rest of eternity, as far as I'm concerned. As soon as I saw that, I knew that whoever was hosting Thanksgiving in my family this year was going to have an overnight guest. We have to set that up quickly because, apparently there might be only 10 of us at that point that are allowed to dwell at that place. So I got to get my slot because if it's at 4:30, dinner's usually at 2:30 and drinking's usually at noon. The math doesn't all work out.
I was told there would be no math, but I appreciate the attempts. T, when it comes to Thanksgiving Day, so I'll ask you: are you watching the game from the table, or are you at that point? Are you making your plates and you're in the room?
So for a 4 o'clock game, I think we probably will be sitting down close to halftime. Yes, the TV will be on while while the dinner is being eaten. Look, it's Thanksgiving. It sucks when they lose on Thanksgiving, but it just enhances the day as far as I'm concerned. You can't ever ruin you can never ruin Thanksgiving for me. I think it's great that they play on that day. I'm always hopeful they're going to win. They don't always win, but I wouldn't want it any other way.
I think the NFL has done a good job of it's always been Thanksgiving in NFL for all of us hardcore NFL fans. Thanksgiving means football, but I think they've done a better job of that in recent years by getting the night game. It's like the NBA took over Christmas. When you watch NBA game after NBA game, it's like bowl games on New Year's Day. The NFL on Thanksgiving and the NBA on Christmas. The Redskins are that middle game. Hopefully that night game will wash away any badness we see, or will provide opportunity for folks, whoever's calling that night game, to talk about, man, did you see the Redskins whoop that ass in Dallas all day long? Was that awesome? So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. The Redskins do stay on the road for another 2 weeks. They go to Pittsburgh, and then they go across country to San Francisco. So, Pittsburgh to San Francisco is a hard. That's a hard one. I mean, I give you the tough ones.
When the schedule came out, you're like, okay, all right. Ooh. This is where it starts going. Ooh, this is where you start going. That's gonna be tough. I think things get really rough. The Redskins start right around here.
Kev?
It certainly looks tough, and I usually am the guy that says, let's back off everything in the schedule. But historically, we know what Pittsburgh has brought to the table. We know what their coach has got. He's one of the top 5 longest tenured coaches in the game. Pittsburgh's not messing around coming off an 8-8 year. They've only got a year or two left with Roethlisberger, and they're trying to pump it in. Heading across the country to San Francisco, they're freaking loaded. And then back home for Seattle. Sorry we didn't get to that yet, but this stretch of schedule is more disturbing than the dream you just had about San Francisco. Having to go to Pittsburgh, actually go to San Fran and come home against Russ. That stretch right there, man, Ken, see if you can think about something happy and REM sleep for that 3 weeks.
Yeah, I hope you're playing tackle for the 49ers that week, because otherwise it's going to be a long day. Kyle Shanahan, and the revenge factor. There won't be a day that he's a coach where he plays the Washington Redskins and he doesn't want to win 100-0. I know he's not always going to succeed in that, and I know we're going to get ours at some point. But that San Francisco 49er team is special. I love them. I love their defense. Their defense is fun to watch. And again, we love defensive football. We talk about it all the time here. It's not always appreciated in this era of just ridiculous stats. So kudos to what they're up to on the ground. it's fun. It's fun when three guys all rush for 80 or to 100 yards in one game. It's not fun when they do it to you. I'm hoping that's not what happens to us that day. I love Debo Samuel. I think they got players. This is a tough part of the schedule. We do come home from San Francisco. We do have a chance on Sunday, December 20th, to take on Pete Carroll and the Seattle Seahawks. They make the long trip that time. T, is that enough?
Look, it's always hard. It's always hard to go across country. I think the Redskins again have an opportunity there to take one. With a very tough stretch ahead of them. Hopefully, they're healthy at that point, having played probably a couple very good teams. But again, that's one that pops up to me as one of those ones on the schedule. There's a possibility there because of they have to travel. You don't know what shape they're going to be in. It's going to be a long season for everybody.
Yeah, Kev, at that point in time of the season, no matter who you play, and looking at it from this far out, you just know that teams are going to start not looking like what we think they look like right now. And whether it's Seattle or San Francisco or Pittsburgh, we know one of those teams, and potentially us, aren't going to look like what we look like on paper today. Someone's going to be a disappointment. Someone's going to be an upstart. But at the end of the day, the Seattle Seahawks, for a West Coast team, people, Kevin, we see this in college all the time. People don't pay attention to West Coast sports because they're watching their own time zone and they're getting a big time dose of East Coast athletics. The Seattle Seahawks have been doing it the right way for quite some time. They got talent and they got a good coach.
They have a good coach. They have a great front office. They're one of the few franchises that has figured out how to pay your superstar quarterback an exorbitant amount of money while still maintaining a roster that's able to compete at the highest of levels, going 11-5 last year. They're coming across the country, but let's remember this. Danger Russ Wilson is from Richmond, Virginia. This is a homecoming game for him. When he comes to this part of the country, this is as close as it gets to one of the best athletes on the planet and one of the best leaders and one of the best players on our game. And I hate that it's a homecoming game for him because he is the guy that we've had the most trouble stopping.
Yep.
So I hate that we're coming off that road trip right there. Dallas, Pittsburgh, San Fran. We got him sitting there at home. So, let's hope for that schedule to work out in our way. Maybe some guys have some bumps and bruises. Hey, it'll also be a good test for us at that point of the year. I think Russell Wilson and Lamar Jackson are obviously the elite players on this schedule. The guys that we look at and go, damn, how are we going to stop him? So you got to let them get theirs and take it away from everyone else. I hate playing these guys. Seattle's had our number since we can remember. I got nothing good to say. I couldn't say anything positive about that day. You'd be a knucklehead to just be super optimistic about the Seattle Seahawks coming to town that day.
Seattle Seahawks fans feel the same way I always felt as a kid and as a young adult when we played the Detroit Lions. Like, you just knew you were going to win because we always did. The Seattle Seahawks have absolutely owned us, and I don't know why I'm more mad about it. This is my biggest problem with Seattle. When we had 2 games left to close out this schedule, but T, maybe you can play a little therapist role here. Why am I not more mad at Seattle? Why can't I be mad at Pete Carroll and Russ Wilson? Why can't I be mad at the city of Seattle? I don't understand. I'm mad. I can get mad at teams and people so easily in sports, and I can't stay mad at Seattle. It's weird.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, I can only speak for myself. I only know one Seattle Seahawks fan. That's it.
Maybe that's it.
And I think once they come in and they play us, whether they win or lose, and they go back, well, it's like doing fractions back in school. I can't do a fraction now. I knew how to do it back then, but then I just forgot about it. And
I'm not even a big Starbucks guy.
They're gone.
I don't understand. But you know what? It's only 1 week of the season. We wash that away with a huge game in week 16, I believe it is. That's right. Week 16, 2 days after Christmas, Ron Rivera gets to take on his old team, the Carolina Panthers. They come to FedEx Field. I got this as a win. Just if you're keeping track at home, that to me is a win. I got to believe that locker room speech before the game will mean something. And again, Ron Rivera isn't the kind of guy who's going to MF people You know, and be that guy. He's not going to make this, you know, do this for me. But I got to believe he's going to look at those guys in the eyes and say, "Hey, they fired me. They didn't think I was worth it. They didn't want to move forward with me after I took them to a Super Bowl and after I made, you know, put all that heart and soul in there. Can you get my back?"
At this part of the season, Ken, I hear what you're saying. I don't think Ron Rivera is the type of guy to be like, do this for me.
Right.
Me.
Right.
Everything he talks about is the greater good of the whole situation, the whole organization. And I think what happens organically throughout the course of the season, right now, you're talking about Ron Rivera and this group of men, these Washington Redskins. We're talking about week 16. At that point, it's not going to be a win-one for the Gipper. It's one of those deals where those guys in the defense, the leaders in the locker room, look at each other and say, hey, coach didn't say do this for me. Coach didn't say they fired me, we better. He didn't try and rile us up that way. He's got bigger goals for us. But I think that's when the guys take it upon themselves to say, we cannot let him lose this game.
That's right.
We cannot walk out of here letting our guy down. And hopefully that's the case at that time. Yeah. Hopefully that it's gelled that way, and that's what we're all hoping and anticipating. But hopefully those guys say, not today. Not today, coach. Maybe this one isn't for you, but we're not letting you carry on with this one on your shoulders. We'll take care of that for you.
It's win-one for the skipper. Yeah,
ooh,
that's what it's going to be.
Look at, hey, Kev, did you hear that? That was pretty sharp, IT.
I saw the shit-eating grin on his face before he got to say it, so I knew something was coming.
I was thinking it when you were saying it. I thought about the Gipper, and I was like, hey, win-win for the skipper. Yeah.
Don't try to convince me to make that into a T-shirt, T. I know that's all you can think about right now. Let's make T-shirts and send them all the way out. Eric Anderson and James Rainey, you guys got the T-shirts. By the way, I don't want to gloss over things, but I feel a little bit insulted that Benjamin rolled in with a mask tonight. It's only the two of us down here. We're the only ones that have been down here for, 10 years, and then he's wearing a mask. It just makes me feel a little self-conscious. I don't know what he's trying to say.
Ken,
yeah,
we've all been watching long enough to know that mask doubles as a thong as soon as we go off the air.
All right, well, fair enough.
But who's
spilling the secrets? Yeah, ooh,
that's up to you and the board to decide.
That's between Benjamin and I. It's private, personal business. Listen, week 17, we're on the road to Philadelphia. Let's just all agree it's going to be a terrible day of football. And whether we win or lose, to me, that's like the kind of game of the season that we may be in store for, where it's like a wet snow. It's miserable to be out in. You can't hold the ball. You can't catch the ball. You can't carry the ball. And just weird stuff happens all day, and it doesn't matter because we're probably not in a playoff contention, and other stuff is happening on that NFL Sunday that's more important to the season. So, listen, if we win, awesome. If we don't, it's probably, like we've said before, it's probably not going to hurt us in terms of our rebuild. But at this point of the season, I'm not looking for wins and losses. I'm hoping guys stay healthy, no spiral fractures of any legs, and everyone's coming back the following season in year 2 of Rivera. I'll be honest with you guys. So we didn't do a win-loss record prediction. It's going to be a somewhat lopsided situation, most likely. And I want to throw out there that's not. I think there's a lot we can accomplish as a team without putting a huge number of wins on our schedule, and then also coming back the next season with an opportunity to add more talent around Rivera with those extra picks that we've been picking up. So, do you want to throw a number out there, T? I know you said you were keeping it in your head.
Look, when I first picked up the schedule and you go to win, lose, win, lose, win. I came out with 7-9. I think that's where we are. And you know what? I love the fact that we're playing the Eagles at the end. It may not be for getting in the playoffs, but F the Eagles. It's something. It'll be our playoff game. It'll be our swan song. If we can beat the Eagles on the last game of the season, going into an off season, we're kind of like, okay, that win about as well, maybe even a little bit better than I expected. I think that win carries, a little bit of momentum and maybe Rivera's got this thing on the right track. Who knows? But that's what I look forward to.
Beating the Eagles is its own reward. It always has
Correct.
been, and it will be true that day. So I agree with you. And just to repeat something, a mantra that we all believe in, we don't root for losses for better draft picks. By no means will I be rooting against the Redskins that day, no matter what. A win against beating the Eagles is its own reward, Kevin. Beating the Giants and the Cowboys is its own reward. And all of those things matter to us, and I'll take every single solitary win I can get. Do you want to throw a number out there, Kev?
I will. Just a quick sidebar on what you just said about playing to win the game,
Yep.
about not messing with the schedules or the draft picks or whatever. Anyone that's watching The Last Dance with Michael Jordan 3 episodes ago got the chance to listen to Michael Jordan's opinion on this topic, and it's non-discussable. It's not even a fact. He didn't even think about one instance about it being okay. And that's why what we've always thought down here at First Amendment. And people think we're nuts. And I can't believe anyone wouldn't agree with us 100%.
100%.
So if you heard Michael Jordan say it, obviously one of the greatest winners of all time. I just want to say a couple things about the schedule real quick, Ken, NT. There were, on our schedule of 16, there's 10 teams that did not have a winning season last year. You know, a lot of people are saying what a brutal schedule it is, and there is a tough stretch there. But you know, you can't understand. You have no idea what's going to happen. I know this. Coming off schedules based on last season, we play 7 of the bottom 10, 7 of the worst 10 records in football are on our schedule. Yes, 3 of the top 10, but you know, there's 10 games right there. That means 6 against the middle. And I'm gonna go out on a limb here. And with my Rivera magic and everything else in hand, I think we have the ability to go 8-8. And I'm an 8-8 guy. I'd certainly be happy with P7-9, a 4-game increase, knowing what we know about what's going to happen the following season, and implementing the culture change that we're about to. And hopefully it sticks to the wall. So I'm an 8-8 guy, Ken. Looking at this schedule, it doesn't seem tremendously brutal to me. I mean, I know who we're not playing against. Deshaun Watson, Pat Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Tom Brady. You know, I always look at quarterbacks on the other schedule. We talked about Ross and Lamar, and there's a couple other guys on there at the tail end of their careers, but I think 8-8 is manageable. I think that's a possibility for the good guys.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Since I'm writing the article and I'm putting it out, the road to 10-6 is possible for all the reasons you just said, Kevin. So I'm gonna say that 10-6 is possible as well, and I'll leave it there because I want to be uplifting and positive as we head into our closing segment of the night, which I'm super excited about, where our main man Luke asked the question: best 80s sports movies. Everyone had to put their answers in anonymously, and there was one answer that all 3 of us put down. Now, so we don't know each other's answers. We don't know what anyone else put, but one movie was put into our top 3 by all 3 of us, and it's an easy guess. Throw it out there. Easy guess.
Football.
Wrong.
Damn. All right.
Hoosiers.
Yeah.
That would have been my third guess.
We all said Hoosiers. Now,
No,
obviously,
I'm pretty sure
what's that, T?
I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked at that. That's one of the best movies of all time, regardless of whether you're doing sports themed or not.
That's right.
I mean, if you got a heartbeat, then that's a movie for you. It doesn't surprise me there. I was a little surprised by Kevin jumping the gun on what he thought it was, though.
I just assumed.
It's a fair guess, Kev. It's a fair guess. But when you talk about, we actually, and it's weird. Maybe it was just on my mind because we had a Hoosiers Hickory Normandale reference in the Coach G interview on the WCAC show prior to this one, because everything that happens in that movie is an easy analogy in any sports conversation you have with anyone ever about anything. It's just like a Hoosiers moment applies to everything in life. It's kind of ridiculous, but it's true. And it's an amazing movie, and Dennis Hopper is the man. And they called me You know, when they came out, they called me Shooter when I was the assistant coach for my kid's basketball team. When he was mostly because I didn't know as much basketball as Shooter knew. Shooter knew, he actually knew basketball. I don't. I didn't. But it was fun because I got to be called Shooter again. Hoosiers everywhere. So Hoosiers. Go ahead, T.
We have a picket fence play.
Of course you do. You gotta have it. You gotta have a picket fence play. You don't get caught watching the paint dry. Obviously.
I feel like Rivera could be saying, "My team is on the field."
My team's on the field. So if you haven't watched Hoosiers, God help you, watch it immediately. Kevin, you get the honor of going next because both of your other two picks, I'm told by Luke, were included in both T and I's lists. So,
man,
take it away.
You know, there's a lot of movies to choose from. I tried not to be so blatant, but 1986, the Central High Wildcats, coached by Goldie Hawn, the film debut of the one and only Wesley Snipes and Woody
Harrelson.
Along with the film debut of LL Cool J, brother, as himself. And
so good. And the great song.
Oh, the main man, though, Philip Finch, played by Tab Thacker. Tab Thacker went to NC State, was a three-time NCAA All-American wrestler. He was in the heavyweight division. I'm not sure if he weighed in right then and there, but he wound up at 6'4", 450. Clint Eastwood saw him in Time magazine winning the NCAA heavyweight division for his third straight All-American season and said, you know, I got to use this guy in something. This guy should be in Hollywood. I love that about him. I love the fact that Clint Eastwood had anything to do with it. Goldie Hawn playing Molly McGrath certainly made things a little sweeter. And you look back at some of those references, and holy moly, kind of gives you an idea of where we were in the mid-'80s. It's nuts.
Shout out to Nipsey Russell as well.
Oh, yeah. Nipsey was the principal?
He was the principal. He was like, right,
yeah, man.
Right. It was, come on. I mean, so Kevin, that was the one that was on my list. So that you know that the next one you're about to say was
Hold on, no. We can't forget about the cheerleaders.
We can't forget about the cheerleaders.
All right.
Oh, they were the best.
Go ahead. So Kevin, your next one, your last of your three was on T's list.
Yeah, it's just in this day and age, July 25th of 2020 will be the 40th anniversary of Caddyshack. To this day, a lot of us still use these terms, still have these sayings, and you're talking about Chevy Chase, Bill Murray, and Rodney Dangerfield all in the same place. T, the coolest part about this whole thing, there you go. There's Danny in there, but Rodney Dangerfield, Chevy Chase, and Bill Murray were all supposed to have cameo roles when this started. After the filming, it became evident the three of those were not cameo guys, and they became the mainstay of the whole thing. And the best part, when they were filming and staying in that motel, they said it was like Animal House, the movie, offset in that motel down in the middle of nowhere, Florida.
Kevin, there was a hurricane. I'm not going to go. If you haven't seen the making of Caddyshack, do yourself a favor. It's the greatest thing you could possibly watch about a movie. They took over a golf course, the only golf course that would have them. I believe it was in Florida, right? And they had a hurricane, and they were in this like 2-level building where they had taken it over, and all the actors were hanging out there. They were, X-taping the windows with duct tape because, to protect from, and the bottom floor flooded. So they're all on the top floor. We're talking about the early 80s with guys like Rodney Dangerfield, Chevy Chase and all these guys. Let's just say it was kind of a party. There was some crazy things happening. Ted Knight, maybe not fully on board. What's that?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, it was a show. And I highly recommend you watch the making of Caddyshack because and to your point, Kevin, awesome example of you get your tiger by the tail, and you get Chevy Chase and Bill Murray in one place. Movie magic is about to happen, and you just need to step out of the way and let it happen. And that's what they did. And I'll tell you what, it got moved out of mine by one movie. But T, you get to go first. You have a unique third movie that no one else has. Give it to us.
I have a unique.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
so
you
we
have
know
Hoosiers. You have
two of
Go
yours.
with
Caddyshack.
Emmanuel.
What's your third?
Here's the thing. I could do this 3 times over with 3 different lists and think that it's a great list. You're right, Kevin. This was a lot harder than I thought when I first heard the question. And I'm thinking, okay, that could be too hard. My honorable mention list goes on forever.
We have a slide for that, T. We have a slide for that, but give us your third.
Right. It was a great decade. My third is The Natural. Only because, for some weird reason, The Natural is my favorite sports movie of all time. It has been for the longest time. I put it even above Hoosiers. There's just something about it, the American feeling about it, the old school baseball, Robert Redford, the Wonder Boy, the guy with dreams, the guy who comes back and does something great. There's the backstory with all the darkness in it. I just love the movie. I think it's incredible. And it's got one of the, if not most iconic sports images of the sparks going everywhere after he hits the home run to win it all.
Hit the cover off the ball.
He hit the cover off the ball, but then he hit the lights out of the park. So, it's The Natural for me. Has been for a long time.
It even has a little bit of like the evil sports owner thing that has always been a part of sports and never really kind of makes it into the movies, all the time. And it was a great, it was a great, you got a chance to root for the workman-like manager and his assistant in the dugout, just kind of making their way through life, coaching baseball. And then you got this guy up in the stands. And, of course, you have Kim Basinger, and it was awesome. You're right. And it was on my top 4, top 5 as well. I'll tell you what, I'll give you guys my last one, and I know I'm opening myself up to it, but I've been consistent. This has been a movie I've been referencing on Hogs Haven for the entirety of my time as a writer on Hogs Haven. I know Kevin probably already knows which one it is. It's Lucas, and it is a great 80s sports movie. I highly recommend it.
It's not a sports movie.
It's about high school football, T.
Got one scene about high school football.
That is not true. You get some early Charlie Sheen, some great early Jeremy Piven, and it's a feel-good story about a kid who somehow was allowed to take the field during an actual game with only a pair of shoulder pads, a helmet that doesn't fit, and glasses. And I don't know how he gets into the game and how they let the game keep going, but it ends the way it should, in the hospital emergency room 5 minutes later. But it is an amazing 80s sports movie, and Lucas, to me, it's just going to live forever. Kevin, I know you're not happy.
You're not allowed to
happy.
I'm not displeased. I'm just listening to you talk about Lucas, and it's making me feel warm and fuzzy inside.
I love me some Lucas, but I'll tell you what. Go ahead, T. What do you got? You're not happy about that?
Not sports themed.
It's a high school football movie. The main character, his main goal in life is to be accepted in high school football as the way in which he feels like he can accomplish that. Even though
maybe that's the way you saw the movie.
He's a Doogie Howser type character. All right. Listen, just watch Lucas. It's going to change your life in this pandemic, okay? That's all I'm saying. Now, that said, the list of movies that we could have and maybe should have picked, according to all the folks on the board tonight, it is Rudy before Rudy. Eric Anderson, he said it's Rudy before Rudy. You couldn't be more right, Eric. As always, as usual, you are so right.
But I want to hear what T has to say about Teen Wolf.
Look at this. All right, so the Luke's leftovers.
Any of basketball in Teen Wolf. That is a major plot line of the movie. I don't think that football is a major plot line of the movie. The major
plot line is a 5'1" white guy who's also a werewolf.
Yes, who is a killer who can dunk. He can dunk, Kevin. Look at so there.
All those are great. We're missing Everybody's All American. We're missing that one.
And okay, so just so you guys, what do you do? I moved The Natural and All the Right Moves. Just missed my list.
Yo, Rocky 4, bro.
I put Rocky 3 over Rocky 4. I mean, Rocky 3 was
have them both. Ivan Drago training in Siberia. That was badass.
I know, but it's not Mr. T, Clubber Lang.
Oh.
And it's not
Brigitte Nielsen.
Dude, that is. I don't know what you're talking about there. I'm not a Brigitte Nielsen guy. I mean, if we just need to have that conversation, we can go offline.
She must thank you.
All right, so the Vision Quest is another one that everyone likes to talk about. Little Matt Modine. You got obviously Raging Bull, which was a big one on the board. Greg Martin, obviously a big Raging Bull guy. Field of Dreams. T, I would have bet money that you put Field of Dreams on your list.
You know what? You're right. I struggle with it, but I actually might even like Bull Durham more than Field of Dreams. You know,
I like Major League more than both of them.
Me too.
That's why I think you do this. I honestly could come up with 3 different lists, 3 different times, three different movies for 3 different lists.
Yeah.
By the way, I think this is the best shot. This three shot is just where it's at. Is that a skull, Kodiak? I think this shot is the best because I love seeing T's reaction when I try to justify things like Lucas and Teen Wolf, and we'll just have this conversation forever.
Teen Wolf is fine.
Major League, by the way, is
Teen Wolf is terrible.
I love Teen Wolf. I love it
awesome
so much.
movie.
It's so great. Teen Wolf 2, terrible until we realize who Jason Bateman really is. But with Teen Wolf 2, a sequel, that's for next week, right? Because we do sequels after this. Hey, guys, I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Once again, as you see there with our 80s sports movies, best 80s sports-themed movies. Once again, we accomplished the unaccomplishable, which is to make us forget for just a few minutes on a Tuesday night what's going on outside this basement, outside that attic, outside that Pat Tillman and Tim Strachan memorial, what we got going on there behind T. I love it, guys. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. All the guys on the board, thank you so much. Field of Dreams is not boring, Greg Martin. Enjoy your honeymoon, sir. You deserve it. We will be back again next Tuesday night. We'll be talking high school sports on the WCAC Spectacular. We'll be talking Redskins football on Thank God It's Tuesday. Until then, he's Tim Strachan.
Appreciate it, guys, and looking forward to the next dream scenario, Ken.
All right, well, I'll see what I can do. I can't make any promises. I'm not in charge. He's Kevin Ricca.
Coach, I'll make it.
Now you're talking, Kevin Ricca. I'm Ken Marangolo, and this was Thank God It's Tuesday. I want to say thank you to everybody at First Amendment Sports for making this possible. That includes you and your 1,200-acre plantation / compound VM. We love you, buddy. Luke, thank you so much, as always. Join us next Tuesday night. We'll see you then.